So, taking photos, the most important tool to have is a camera, and there's lots of cameras out there. As you can see, I've got various number of cameras here that I use when I'm out there chasing storms. My Fuji camera here, which is my still camera for taking high-res photos like this one here. And then of course, there's always the iPhone or other smartphones like the Android phones, and almost everyone has one of these in their pockets. The most important thing is that the best camera to use is the camera that you have, and sometimes that might just be a phone like this. So once you have a camera in your hand and you've figured out what you want to take a shot of, the next most important thing is composing the shot. And it's important to follow some principles like the rule of thirds, getting the lighting correctly. So if you have the sun out, you want to have that sun potentially behind you, lighting up the subject that you're trying to shoot. So when I talk about rule of thirds, the rule of thirds is a grid. When you look at your camera, you can see, you got to visualize a grid of what you're shooting, and you want to try and balance out the subject and other things in the photo in that grid. So if you have, say, 3 trees that you're taking a photo of, you want to have each one of those trees and 1/3 of the shot. Well, that's the rule of thirds. So part of composing a shot also means paying attention to what you're getting into the shot. Now you don't want to put unsightly subject matter in there like trash cans or power lines or your broken down shed or something of that nature. You want to make sure you're just capturing that beautiful image of the weather or anything else in nature that you're trying to capture. And that might mean that you might have to move your body. Now you can zoom in with these cameras, and that is one method of composing that shot. But if you can, you want to move your body, you move your feet, get closer to the image, move to the side, maybe to help get something like a power line out of your shot. And if you can't move, then the next thing to do is to zoom in with your phone or with your camera that you're shooting with. Lighting, that's basically what photography is you're capturing light. You're allowing light into your camera. So you don't want to be putting your camera on something that's drowned out with light. You've got the sun right next to that object that you're trying to shoot. Maybe it's a cloud and the sun is right there. You might not be able to get a good shot of that because of overexposure and other things related to light like that. So let's say now you've gotten that shot, you liked your shot, but there's just not quite right. Like maybe there is a little bit of something else you don't want in there, like a power line, or let's say it's a little crooked. And post-processing is a method of what you can do is you can take that photo and edit it after the fact. And that might mean cropping in. And so when you crop in, you're zooming into that frame of that shot that you've taken, and you're trying to get you're gonna adhere to the rule of thirds, but you're trying to get the other things out of the shot that you don't want. Or maybe you didn't quite get the rule of thirds right, and you wanna try and fix that. Your horizon, you have too much land, horizon's too high up, and that way you can fix it with post-processing. Additionally, you can make these photos pop by adjusting color and saturation. Now, cameras, they're generally pretty good these days, especially with the iPhones, taking a shot that's got the right colors and the right saturation. But maybe to you want it to be a little bit more vivid. Now, you can get in there with post-processing features and adjust that color and adjust that saturation, make them look just a little bit more colorful, a little bit more vivid, and that can really make your shot stand out. Finally, there's exposure and shadows. Now, sometimes you might not want to, maybe your shot looks a little too dark and you don't want to adjust the exposure, but you can fix that by adjusting the shadows. So you can lower the shadows so things aren't quite as dark, and that can help keep the rest of the shot properly exposed, but by bringing out those dark areas and making them look a little bit brighter and easier to see. So now let's take a look at one of the photos that I've actually taken. This is one of my most famous photos I've taken of a tornado here in Canada. I took this in Scarth, Manitoba. And this is a tornado here. It was an EF3 tornado. And as you can see here, let's talk about the rule of thirds now. And you can see the storm actually and the ground kind of helps highlight where the rule of thirds are. Now the rule of thirds are just a principle, so you can kind of, bend the principle there a little bit, bend the rules a little bit. But as you can see here, we've got the ground, the grass, and this is 1/3 of the photo. You've got another third this way. That is the horizon, the sky, up to the cloud deck. So that's kind of another third of the photo. And then the top third of the photo is the storm itself with the top of the tornado. And then the other direction, looking at this way for the rule of thirds, you can see I wanted to show in this photo that there was blue sky all around that storm. So you can see on this third of the photo, you get that blue sky. And then you have the tornado, which is in that middle third, but it is kind of leaning to the right a little bit. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, this was 1/3, but on this third, there's not much going on. You got this little tree with a big tornado, but this tornado kind of bleeds over into that third. So this would be the final third. And you can kind of see the rule of thirds here perfectly with this photo. So we've talked about all the principles of taking a good photo so you can get those photos in the MyRadar app and get them featured. Now let's head outside and go put some of these principles into practice, and let's take some photos. So here we are now out in the field. Now let's use the things that we talked about in the studio, how to properly take a photo, compose a shot here. Now we're gonna use this fountain out here in this beautiful lake in beautiful downtown Orlando, and that's gonna be our subject that we're gonna frame in the shot and properly compose. So here we go. I've got my phone out here, my smartphone with the built-in camera, and now we're gonna frame the shot here, take a look at the frame here. First, I wanna show you an example of what not to do when you're out here taking photos. So as you can see, the fountain is quite far away. I've got some trees in my way here. Just to the left here, there's tree limbs that are appearing in the shot, and that is not what I wanna compose. I just wanna compose that fountain. So as I talked about, you can move your feet to get closer. So we can start off by doing that. I can move my feet and get a little bit closer to the shot here, but we do have this lake. So we're gonna have to use the zoom to zoom in and properly compose this shot. Now we talked about the rule of thirds, and I'm zoomed in here. I've got a good view of the fountain here. So now we need to look at the rule of thirds. So you might not know that, but most smartphones have the ability to turn a grid on that helps you identify what that rule of thirds is, where the thirds are in your frame. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Go into your settings, down to the camera, turn on the grid, and we'll go back to the camera now. So you got the left, the middle, the right, the top, the middle, and the bottom. So splitting up that screen into threes horizontally and vertically. And now we're gonna zoom in, and this helps me really get the rule of thirds down. Now I've got the fountain, the bottom of the fountain at that bottom third, or right at the middle third, but the bottom of it is at the top of the bottom third. The water is my bottom third, the fountain and the buildings are my top third, and then the beautiful blue sky is my very top third. On the left, we've got buildings, we've got the fountain framed right in the middle, and we've got more buildings to the right. So we've got a perfectly balanced shot here. We're gonna go ahead and snap that shot off. And there's my shot. So even on a bright blue day with no weather, you can still compose a beautiful shot using the sun properly to light up what you're trying to shoot. Get out there and shoot some nature. So now we've got that perfectly composed photo, a beautiful photo of that fountain with the lake. Now let's get it into the MyRadar app. So we've selected our photo. It'll take a couple of minutes to upload and appear on the map, but from there people can like and comment on it, and your photo might even appear across MyRadar social media. So I hope you found these tips that we just talked about useful, and you can use these tips to get your photo into the app, and I look forward to seeing them, so good luck.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, Xbox, and Windows.